I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and Nissan is bringing the Ariya to Australia. For the last couple of years, Nissan have said that they want to bring the Ariya here. Now it's mid-2023 and I'm standing here in Australia with an Ariya. This is a UK spec Ariya, but the car will be launching in our market most likely early 2024, probably not by the end of 2023, Nissan executives tell me. Why? Well, there are some government homologation delays, but partially it's because the success of the Tesla Model Y has galvanized Nissan into doing something and getting its electric SUV to Australia a little bit sooner maybe than initially planned, but it has still been a very long delay since this car was first announced and shown to the world. So what is the Ariya? Well, it is a classic mid-size crossover, fully electric, two different available battery sizes, front drive or all-wheel drive. In today's video, I'm going to tell you what you'll be able to expect when the Ariya comes to Australia. We'll check out the interior, the back seat and the boot, discuss the running costs, the range, the consumption, and then we'll take a drive on representative Australian roads here at this private facility in Queensland. Because these cars are UK, they actually can't be driven on public roads, but we've got a really good substitute for you today. So before we get started, hit subscribe down below. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by Jumping into the Nissan Ariya, this vehicle is a massive change in terms of interior design for Nissan, and for the better, in my opinion. Now, this car's already been out in Europe and the US for a while, so you might have already seen all of this, but for me, it's actually quite fresh because while I saw the unveiling of the Ariya's styling just before the COVID pandemic, I've never seen the car in person after that, and I've never sat in one, and I must say, I like what I see. This is a classic upper mainstream interior. It feels relatively nice, a little bit special, without feeling the need to like lay on heaps of lavishness that's going to drive up the cost too much, and that's good. So it starts with a nice steering wheel, perforated leather, you've got shortcut controls, and of course, unlike a Model Y, you actually do have an instrument cluster in front of you with a sort of classic tacho style with regen braking indication and your speedometer, but that's all customizable. You've got another screen to the left of that, touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, integrated nav, and the car has a Bose stereo because we're actually sitting in the upper trim of two trim levels that's available in Europe. As for the Australian range, they're currently considering what that's going to look like. So there's a short range car with a 63 kilowatt hour battery. There's this long range front wheel drive version with 87 kilowatt hour battery, and then there's an 87 kilowatt hour e-Force all wheel drive model. Now, the Model Y is clearly showing that you can do all three variations in Australia, but we'll see what Nissan settles on. As for price, I'd be hoping to see an entry grade Ariya in the 60s if I was honest with you. Onto the seats, they're very nice. They're mostly this sort of ultra suede material rather than leather, but they are heated and cooled, which is great. Cooled seats makes up for the dark interior big time. Lovely wood trim, not sure if it's real, but it looks real, and it's got these fabulous climate controls in the trim. Same thing for the drive mode, and even the buttons for this funny electrically driven compartment, all baked into the wood, and they shine through the finish, which is amazing. Speaking of bizarrely over-engineered electrics, we've also got a sliding center console for reasons. That's definitely cool though. You've got cup holders, you've got a wireless charger between the seats and heaps of open storage, 12 volt, etc. It's a roomy feeling cabin underneath an opening panoramic sunroof. Material quality all feels really nice. Build quality seems well screwed together, so I'm excited for this car to land here in Australia. The Ariya sits on Nissan's CMF EV bespoke electric vehicle platform, which has let them push the wheels out to the corners, and as such, there's long wheelbase and lots of legroom, just like what we find in all of this car's competitors, really, but it's impressive nonetheless. Legroom for me at 6 foot behind my driving position is amazing, but toe room is a little bit squished, and I've got to splay my legs in order for them to be supported by the thigh angle on this rear bench. So not perfect, but I could do probably 90 minutes, couple of hours back here without complaining too much. We do have air vents, heated rear seats for extra efficiency, USB charge ports here in the back, map pockets, and all of those high quality materials actually continue here in the back. Even on the B-pillar, you have like a sort of ultra suede covering, which I don't think I've seen before. You do get a flip down armrest between the seats as well, and headroom is good enough even though this car has a panoramic sunroof, which is awesome. Now, coming around the back of the Ariya, just a word on styling. I actually think the Ariya looks really good. I'm not a huge fan of this battleship grey colour, but I have seen a few different monochrome variations today at our pre-drive of the Ariya, and I think it's actually a really pleasant looking vehicle outside. A little bit futuristic, but not too in your face that it's an EV, and for me that's a blend that I like. Here around the back, we've got this translucent sort of full width tail light with Nissan integrated. You've got your Ariya badge. This is the 87 kilowatt-hour front-wheel drive version, but it's possible that Nissan would also bring the all-wheel drive version to Australia, which would also have an E-Force badge. It's a power tailgate, of course, that classic sloping coupe roofline that so many mid-size electric SUVs seem to adopt. And that boot opens up to reveal 468 litres of space, at least in Brit specification, which this car is. It's a high boot floor, that's one of the issues. So the amount of room on offer, it's really only middling, but there is quite a lot of extra storage underneath the boot floor, which is good to know about. Like so many EVs, no spare at all in this car. Interestingly, the Nissan Leaf actually does have a spare, and it stores it at the front of the vehicle rather than at the back. Two big cubby holes off to the left and right though. You've got your cargo blind, which gets out of the way, and then your controls here to either close the tailgate or close it and lock the vehicle. The first thing you notice when you pull away in the Nissan Ariya is that it's very, very normal to drive. So it kind of looks semi-normal from outside. The interior all feels very conventional, and the driving dynamics are extremely approachable. So if you're coming out of an X-Trail, e-Power, RAV4 hybrid, something like that, you're gonna get into an Ariya and just think, oh right, I'm just in a normal car, except it's electric. Of course, you do get some of the benefits from that. It's got lots of instant torque, but even the outputs are pretty regular rather than electrifyingly quick, if you'll pardon the tired, overused pun. But we've got 178 kilowatts of power here and 300 Newton meters of torque. And that's because we've got the big battery, the 87 kilowatt hour, and front wheel drive. This car does not have the E-Force all-wheel drive system, which doubles the torque out to 600 Newton meters and undoubtedly would make this vehicle quite a bit quicker. But the way the Ariya makes its power is very linear, so it doesn't shove you into the back of the seat as you accelerate. Instead, it feels comfortable. It makes progress nicely. A little bit of motor whine, not quite as refined as the motors in an EV6 or an Ioniq 5, but also not too bad, especially once you have some music playing through the Bose stereo. The brakes also feel up to the job, although you also have B mode through the 1-speed automatic, and you have E-pedal as well, which is a decent level of regen braking, although it doesn't feel like true one-pedal driving. Let's just try that out. So E-pedal, confirm that's on. Car sort of slowly coming to a stop. And now I've got to touch the brakes to bring us to a complete stop, which not everybody will love, because the Model Y really does have full one-pedal driving. That being said, I do think it's possible that Australia will get some kind of technical update or maybe even a facelift before this car arrives here, because we're still talking minimum 6 months before this car arrives in Australia, and we think the facelifted Ariya would probably drop sometime in the next year or 18 months, so we'll have to see what version we actually end up getting in this country. But what about the bona fides for this EV, like consumption and range? Well, on paper, it looks pretty good for the big battery front-wheel drive model. The claim in WLTP is 516 kilometers for the highest spec of this car, which is what we have here with the sunroof and the perforated cooled seats and all that sort of thing. And that correlates to a consumption of about 16.9 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks, which is competitive with vehicles like the Model Y and the rear-wheel drive Hyundai and Kia vehicles on this platform. However, we haven't been able to get anything like that on today's pre-drive. Now, the roads that I have at my disposal today, they're very undulating, sort of 60, 70, 80 kilometers per hour, so not where EVs tend to perform well, but I was struggling to get my average efficiency off 30 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks. I was eventually able to get it to about 25, but evidently the Ariya really likes start-stop traffic, and we don't have any of that on these roads here, but that's probably going to be how you'll get your consumption into the high teens and have a driving range of closer to 500 Ks than 400 Ks. As for charging, Nissan Australia technically still won't confirm that the car will come here with CCS rather than CHAdeMO, but I think it would be insane to launch the Ariya with CHAdeMO, so I think it will be CCS. 130 kilowatt DC charging is what the car can currently do in the UK spec, so expect to see that, or maybe slightly quicker here in Australia. Certainly not setting the benchmark for the segment. The Hyundai and Kia cars can do 230, 235, the Tesla can do 250, the Volkswagens will be able to do 170, but it's okay. And you know, if you take lunch or something while you're on a highway road trip, the Ariya can be recharged relatively quickly. And as for safety, well, it's got the ProPilot safety system. In America, this thing will even do hands-off driving. That's not approved for use here in Australia. And refinement, apart from a bit of motor whine, is generally good. We've got glazed windscreen, we've got double glazed side windows, lots of stuff to make this car nice and quiet. So my first impression of the Nissan Ariya is that it's a very pleasant drive. I actually think the handling is really quite good. As for ride quality, it's hard to say when the roads are surfaced very, very nicely like this, but the linear, comfortable amount of performance on offer I think will suit a lot of people that are currently running petrol or hybrid midsize SUVs. This is a really easy EV to get in and drive because it just drives like a normal car. The interior is pleasant, the amount of space on offer is pretty good too, and if Nissan can price this vehicle like it is overseas, similar pricing to a Model Y, even a little bit less, then I think it could be quite competitive if Nissan can get enough of these Arias to Australia. Let me know your thoughts though. What do you think down below this video? Would you be interested in the Ariya? Are you considering a different vehicle in this segment? Let me know your thoughts. While you're there, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.